Want to know how to create spooky looking photos with mysterious creatures using the power of visual effects? Let's break it down. Let me tell you how I created the image of the monster in my friend Alex's newest short film, Pale Incident Report 0A. This was a really fun project. I mean, this was an analog horror project, and I had never done anything in that genre before, but it's always been a genre that's interested me, kind of something related to the found footage feel. It's just like horror with a lot of authenticity, and we really wanted to try to like go far to create that authenticity, to create TV static that everything feels like all the voiceover feels like it's been recorded, in this aged room with this aged digital recorder. There's a certain amount of grit, and that affected my process for creating the monster as well. Just to start off with, just creatively, as far as creative decisions go, me and Alex talked about with the monster, just the idea that there could be an image of the monster. First, we were entertaining that idea because we thought it could be interesting to show sketches, kind of like police sketches, right? Or a witness sketch of what this monster looked like in this piece of analog horror. And then eventually I was like, well, it doesn't have to be a sketch, it could be a photo. But everything we talked about with the sketch, this idea of not fully showing it, it's like you have to squint to see it. Even because in the dialogue of the short film, the witness talks about like he thought it was the wind moving through the trees at first. There's this like it's the strange natural force that you can't quite see at first, but when you do, it's horrible. And that really informed the way that I wanted to approach it. It's like it kind of blends into the background. But when you see it, you go, oh no, is that what I think it is? And that's kind of the feeling that I wanted it to have. Now, of course, this was made possible thanks to assets I got through Sketchfab. There was 3D models by LSC and Laschetti Spice for this kind of mutant human and a skeleton. Because basically, the premise of the creature is that it's this amalgamation of people that have been taken and assimilated into the body of this monster that is a giant spider. That's the premise. So it's this giant thing that's just stitched together with all these people, that were once people and are now just these groaning remains, right? It's a horrible idea. And I was like, "Oh, man," but it would be so cool just to see it, just to, like, see to be, like, kinda squinting at the spider-like shape and then go, "Wait a minute, is that a leg? Is that an arm? Is that a person in there? Wait, they're all people. Are those bones sticking out?" Like, that's the feeling I wanted you to have looking at this creature. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. And so, like, the first thing I did in 3D was just kind of figuring out the basic shape. It's like, all right, I want this kind of spider leg shape. And then it just started like I had these pre-made models and I just started posing them together, just like throwing them together, figuring out like how are they going to be joined. And like they're you can see in my process like it's not just like how do I put this? Like they're being posed together, right? It's like this idea that they're wrapping around each other, contorting as like they're like intertwined, right? Um like holding on to each other. I wanted it to feel like they're trying to all climb out of hell, even perhaps. It's that kind of, they're someone's one person's hands maybe gripping someone else's feet, and they're all just trying to climb their way out of it. I thought about there's a story called The Spider's Thread. If y'all know that, is a story in which um Buddha wants to spare um the soul of this person who was damned. I don't know if they were a thief or what, but he wanted to spare them because they had been kind to one soul, I think of a spider. And so he descended this thread down to hell for them to climb out of and said, like, this is just for you. One person is allowed to climb out of hell. You spared the spider's life, so you may climb out. And then, of course, all the other souls of the damned to see this thread and try to climb on it as well. And so it's just all these people just trying to climb on this one thread dangling from heaven as they all try to climb up it and climb into paradise. It's that story and just that image of all these people, all these hellish figures trying to climb up this spider thread. That's kind of the shape I wanted to go for. That's kind of the image of all these people, all these bodies that are just climbing up each other to form this spider leg. You know, it's not the spider's thread; it's the spider's leg that they're forming. So it's a little bit different, but that's kind of what I'm going for. I don't know if Alex knows that, so if he's watching this video, it's a little behind the scenes trivia of just things I was thinking about while creating and posing the models for the creature. So I guess all this to say is like you can be artistic with this stuff, right? There's a creative process here throughout. Like, it's not just, oh, how do we bring the monster to life? But I guess I just want to encourage anyone watching, like, who's a filmmaker and wants to make things. It's like you can tell stories even through these background details, in small ways that people will pick up on, even if the image is only on screen for a second, which it is. I think in the final film, you see two photos. Actually, before we continue the video, I think it's time for a short message, so I will talk to all of you again after the break. See you then.
If you want to be able to support me as a creator, there are several ways that you can make possible the creation of everything that I do. Become a Patreon member. I post all kinds of exclusive content that you can only see first on Patreon. Stuff like behind-the-scenes content for my filmmaking projects, whether that's in-progress scripts, storyboards, rough cuts, anything for my newest films that aren't posted anywhere else besides Patreon. So become a member. There's a whole range of prices, and you can support me even in small ways. That's super meaningful. Supporting me on Patreon too gets you in the credits list of any film that I release while you're a member. And like I said, even a little goes a long way. You can also collaborate with me now through Fiverr. I offer a range of services that could help bring your project to life. And if you've heard any music in the background of this video, that was my music. So feel free to look me up on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music. Type in Joe Kendrick. That's JoeKendrick. Look up Joe Kendrick on Spotify.
And you may see as I work together on this time lapse that, like, I'm working on basically four different main poses for potential photos, with different angles. And as I finished them all, I realized that some of them were just too up close. And I'm like, I don't want them to see that much of the monster. I don't want you to see a face too clearly or an arm too clearly. I want it to be just this creature in the background, basically. And it's like you have to squint to see it, and like it's maybe even the contrast makes it hard to see the shape of the monster. But once you see it, you go, oh wait, I see all of it there in the image. It's just in the background. Um, and so right, so there's two main photos that I ended up on. One where it's kind of in there's a wide shot of it, looking at it, kind of in comparison to these trees, so you understand the scale of it. It's this tree high creature. Um, and then one where you're a bit further back and you see it posed in front of I don't know to call it a lake or a little pond. Um, and so you also get the scale of it there because it's as high as the trees there in the background, and you see it kind of from across the pond. And all of those background photos that I use for the yeah, like for the backgrounds of these photos are things that like I photographed from different trails and forests near my city. And I mean they're from different locations, some of them miles apart, maybe 30 minutes apart, but they're all like places that are local to me, like footage that I captured that is superimposed into the I don't know if superimposed is the word actually, but it is used as the background for these analog horror images that I was working on. And like I said too, like it's an iterative process, and I made more photos than I ended up using. I think it was helpful to have that to figure that out because there's some creative decisions that up front, and you're like, yeah, it probably makes sense to do a wide shot. But then there's some creative decisions like trying a close up. It's like it makes sense. It could be spooky because close ups can be interesting when they're out of context. You're like, okay, I see part of something, but I don't understand the whole. That's what I was kind of going for with some of those. But it's just I realized as I was working on it that's like it was too close, it showed too much, the image was too clear. And because of that, it wasn't spooky because you could see it and understand it, notice that it was CG, notice that it looked fake, and that just kind of ruined the image for me. But when it was further back and you couldn't quite tell some of its CG qualities, you couldn't get up close to the model and tell that if it was low poly or if the texture wasn't quite right for what it was trying to convey. Just a little bit of distance helped, and a little, and like the final image is run through TV static and it's blurred and it's in black and white. And all of these things help kind of mask the reality of the CG image, right? There's an expression Adam Savage uses sometimes when I think particularly when he's painting models. Adam Savage, of course, like has a huge history of model making. He's not just a mythbuster; he's a model maker. And as he paints them, sometimes he talks about hiding the crimes. I don't know where that expression comes from, but I've heard him use it a lot. And that sometimes there are parts of the artistic process, things that you can implement so that they may hide the limitations of earlier steps of the creative process, right? Things you can do to mask your limitations. You can hide the crimes. And I think that's just an interesting idea. And that's something that we were doing in this analog horror short, using, you know, putting the final image in black and white, a little bit of blur, a little bit of TV static. That is all a part of hiding the crimes, hiding the limitations of CG. So embrace your limitations. Maybe even give yourself more limitations. Sometimes that can be helpful. I mean, and in this analog horror short, we definitely wanted to kind of say that less is more, not show too much of the creature, just these brief glimpses of here is what it was, and you can take a look at it. You can pause the video and see just how horrible that creature is as an idea. But it's ultimately like what the short is about this storytelling of this witness describing the creature and describing their time on the island where the creature was. All these other conflicts that they ran into with this kind of governmental organization that was causing issues and causing distress. It wasn't just about the monster. So the monster didn't need to have a bunch of images. You didn't need to linger on the idea of seeing the monster or describing it. It's just this kind of quick moment where you go, here's the photos that we have of it. Um, I wanted to frame it too, just as if they were like security camera photos, as if it was like a camera that was capturing these images in the woods automatically, maybe captured remotely. Maybe that's why there's only a couple of images, because it had to be remotely captured. Um, but just like a camera that was tied to a tree, that just captured it in the woods. And that's later the film was retrieved, or maybe it was a digital signal. I don't know. I don't fully understand whether some of the if that's within the scope of the world building. Um, but I had enough to work on creatively that I felt like I could still understand how to bring the creature to life. So, y'all, thank you all so much for watching. I'm just going to show the final images of the creature as I finish up this video. Um, I hope that that's just kind of giving you a little insight into my process for creating just these images of this creature. It's all the power of CGI. And just CGI is such an empowering tool. And I still feel like such a beginner. But, like I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with some of these limitations that I have as a beginner. I may not be able to create like Weta digital quality CG, but it still totally changes the kinds of stories I can tell. Now I can create these short films where you see the monster, creating new images from scratch using CG to be creative. And so I encourage you, if anyone's interested in getting into 3D animation or CG, even if you can't do everything right off the bat, even if there's only a couple things that you can do with 3D as you learn, um, it totally changes the kinds of stories I can tell. And it empowers me to just be more creative. I can do sci-fi stories, I can do horror stories and show monsters and spaceships and even more. And I'm so excited by that. Just like the more that I make films, the more I'm able to do as I learn and become a better filmmaker. The more resources I have, not even through like financial resources, but like just through being a better um a better 3D animator, right? That's one tool that I have that like just it's a leveling up is just a requirement of skill, not of financial resources. And so I think that that's like just like exciting, and I hope that that's inspiring. That if you're someone who just wants to make things, um, sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot of money or anything. You can do it for free. It's just a requirement of skill that you have to bring your projects to life. So I want to encourage you all, anyone watching who wants to make things, go make that thing. And just, I don't know, that's the message of my channel. Go make that thing. So without further ado, this is totally unscripted, just an off the cuff video. I just want to talk about the creative process. So now that we've done that, without further ado, I'll let you go.